If you guys are anything like me, you probably have a drawer or a box or a bowl or a corner somewhere where you have pieces of jewelry that need to be repaired or redone. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I take one of my earliest pieces of jewelry and remake it so that it's something I'll actually wear. Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another jewelry making video at keepsakecrafts.net. So I distinctly remember making this piece of jewelry. I had a friend who had drawers and drawers and drawers of beads, and she loaned me her blue bead drawer, and I had fun making this necklace on monofilament. Probably, maybe 15 years ago. It's been a while, and I never wear it. One thing I don't like about it is just the way it hangs. It's just got this kind of stiff, bumpy, lumpy feel to it, which I don't love. I also hate the way I finished it with these crimps. What a mess. And I absolutely despise this clasp. I don't know why. It's very secure, but it's just kind of small and fumbly, and I don't like it. Also, the length is awkward. It's just a little short. It's 16 inches, which on me sits just below my throat, and it makes me feel like I'm going to choke, hence the name choker. But I like my necklaces a little bit longer. But I love the concept of the blue beads kind of floating on monofilament. Another thing I think I don't care for is that you can see here the monofilament I used is actually blue. So I placed an order at artbeads.com and bought a bunch of things I thought I would use. I got some nice quality clear monofilament and a few other things. But I'll tell you what, for the few times I wore this and then this sat in a drawer for a while, it feels gross. It feels sticky and gnarly. And so the first thing I'm going to do is pop this in a bowl with a little bit of dishwashing liquid and use a nail brush and just scrub all of these beads. And then when I come back with some clean beads, we'll get down to redesigning. So now I'm back after washing this, giving it a good scrub. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it sparkles so much more. It feels so much nicer. It just kind of flows in your hand where it didn't before. What a difference that makes. And I discovered that with all of my jewelry that was thrown into the repair and redo box, was the very first thing you want to do is just give it a good cleaning. It makes a big difference. So now before I take this apart and restring it, I want to decide what I'm going to do for a pendant. These leaves only kind of sort of work, so I'm going to save them for another time. And I do like this tassel with the bail. I'm not sure about that. I think it might be a bit much, actually. So I pulled out a few other pieces I had. This is just a craft store flower. I'm not in love with that. This is a Hill Tribe Silver Rose, which is very pretty. I'm kind of having a hard time deciding. And then I came across these. I haven't taught you guys how to make faux drusies yet, have I? I've been remiss. I'll have to make that an upcoming video. These are pretty. I think I kind of like that. But since I'm not sure, what I decided to do in the end was use this. This is a bail from Art Beads. And if you're interested in the supplies I used, you should go to my blog post. There's always a link in the upper right of the video, the lower left at the end of the video, or in the description box. Any of those places will bring you to my blog post, where I always have a list of supplies and links to products for you. There's usually more information there because I write the blog post after I finish the project, so I usually think of things that I hadn't before. I think this is what I'm going to string into the center of my beads. That way I can change out the bails as I feel like it. So then the next step will be to just get some scissors, cut this open, cut this off. I'm going to toss all of that. I'm going to pour all of these beads into a container along with a whole bunch of little tiny silver beads, because I think I want those in there to tie in with whatever silver pendant I end up using. So you can see that I've gone ahead and strung the first half of my necklace. My first version of this was made years and years ago, so I don't even remember how I did it, so I kind of figured out a way of doing it that really gives you a nice, supple, slinky feel. That was one thing I never liked about the necklace either. When I picked it up, it just didn't have a nice drape. Some of that was down to the quality of the monofilament, but some of it I think was the way it was strung. So I've done half the necklace here, and what I did was I took my beads, poured them out onto my little velour beading mat, and just kind of roughly separated out half of them and tried to make sure I had a nice even mix of the beads. I cut 4 24-inch strands of the monofilament, and I actually made a knot. I just tied an overhand knot in all 4 of them to hold them together. And I threw one of these on here because, well, they're clear. It can be tricky to find the end. It weights it a little and helps me know where this other end is. I just have these bead stoppers on these other 4 ends. I don't know how well you can see them. I can hardly see them, but there they are, now that they're all together. So since I'm at the middle of the necklace, I'm going to go ahead and put on my bail now, and that's just a matter of stringing it on. Nothing fancy. I would be sure that you use a bail here that doesn't have any sharp edges, but is nice and rounded and smooth. Otherwise, it's going to eventually cut through your monofilament, and then disaster. See if I can see if all 4 are through. That's the beauty and the horror of using clear monofilament. If you find that you really are having a hard time seeing the end of your monofilament, I have been known to take a Sharpie marker, just a scrap of paper and a Sharpie, and you can color it, and that helps you see it. Oh, that's going to be pretty, I do believe. Now what you need to do is take your pile of beads and roughly sort it into 4 piles. Just eyeballing that they're about equal in size. And like if there are bigger prominent beads like these rectangular dark blue ones, I just try to make sure that there's an about equal amount in each pile. Scooch aside 2 of those piles. I'm going to take 3 of these strands for the moment and pop one of these clamps on it so nothing gets spilled, because I knock things about all the time. Drive myself crazy. So, there. Take one of these strands and just string on all the beads in one of the piles, and repeat that for a second strand. This is the easiest way I have found of managing this pattern that just has a nice smooth flow and drape to it, and the beads move nicely along it, and they're spaced nicely, and even when it's hanging around your neck and gravity's pulling on them, you can see you get this really pretty lacy effect. So 1/4 of your beads on each of 2 of the strands. Now it's time to start working on the 3rd strand. So I'm just going to unclip one of these remaining 2. Put a clip on the other one, because you never know when something is going to get yanked and then get just all messed up. So be generous with the little bead stoppers. We'll be working from one of the remaining 2 piles. That was this half divided into 4 piles. You may not use it all, but you'll probably use close to most of it. So you want to pop on a few beads. I know that's real specific, but again, this is kind of a loose design. Say 3 or 4 beads. So slide them down, and now take a look at one or the other of these 2 strands that you already have beads on, and see kind of a logical place where you can put your cord through the next one. I think right here I'm going to put my cord through that silver one. You just want it to kind of flow, so I wouldn't like try to stuff it down this one. It would just be too tight. It just kind of flows right naturally right to that silver one. And now add a few more beads. Again, 3, 4, probably no more than 5, but it really depends on the size of beads you have. And then repeat, going over to the other strand, again looking for the next spot where it just looks like the beads will flow. So I think I'm going to go into that bugle bead right after that cube. So now you're sort of getting the idea. I'm just going back and forth between these two strands, picking up a few beads in between each, and I will just continue to do that. So I've gone ahead and woven in the third strand of monofilament with beads, and you can see you really get this nice organic look. I did have a few beads left over, and I noticed when I folded it in half that this side is actually a little bit longer, but I can fix that all at the end. So now it's just time to add in the final strand. So for this final pass, what you want to do is try to fill in these large gaps. So I'm going to start off as we did with the previous row. We're just adding on 2 or 3 beads. You could actually stop here with just 3 strands, but I like the look of having the 4th strand kind of fill everything in. I think it sort of brings it all together. All right, there's 3 beads. So now I'm going to look for a big gap, the next big gap, which you can see is right here. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I think I'm going to need 1 more bead to kind of bridge like the middle of that gap. So I think I want these to go to like maybe this clear one here. So a couple more beads. That's what I usually do, is I aim for about the middle of those longer sections. And I'm sure there's many different ways of doing this. Like I said, when I made this years ago, I don't remember how I did it. I probably followed directions in a book or something, so I just kind of made this up as I went along. And this seems to work well, and I like the way it looks. So many of you have told me that you've been encouraged by and enjoyed my videos, and if you have, if you're one of those people, I hope that perhaps you'll consider becoming a patron. Patrons get bonus things that I don't show to the rest of the general public. My patrons get behind the scenes, sneak peeks. They also get bonus tutorials, bonus videos every month. Something to consider. All right, now that I have that one, I'm going to look again for the next big gap, which looks like it's right here. And it looks like I'm aiming for either this blue bugle bead or that clear one. So I'll just fill in as many beads as it takes to smoothly get to that point. Now when I had you cut 25 inches of the monofilament, that is far more than I plan on using for my necklace, but I wanted to have extra. It just makes it easier for the finishing in the end to have extra. So if you need to, this has gotten a little bent and kinked. You probably can't see it, but it's making it a little tough to thread the beads on. And you can always just give it a bit of a trim if you need to. But yeah, back to being a patron. My patrons that support me at $5 and up every month get a bonus video tutorial every month. And my patrons who support me at $10 and up every month get 2 bonus tutorials every month. Also, everybody who supports me for $3 or more a month, after 6 months of that level of support, receives a gift in the mail from me. Just some kind of fun things to let you know how much I appreciate your support. Although these tutorials are free for you to watch, and however long this video ends up being, even if it's 15-20 minutes, you can be certain it took me many hours to make. It's not free for me. Okay, so I've got that one. And then you just proceed looking for the next big gap, fill it in, and keep going until you've reached the end. So I've finished stringing all of my beads onto the monofilament. And the next thing you need to do to determine if your lengths are even is just kind of stroke your beads all to the center so that they're basically like the same density. If I take my bail and put that in the center, what I can see is that I have one side that's just a little bit longer than the other. So all I need to do is take off a few of the beads on this side and transfer them to the other side. This is the side with that big overhand knot, so I'll cut that off. That's another reason to make sure you cut plenty of your monofilament to begin with, so that you can do something like that, pull them off and still have plenty to work with. So let's see, we'll just give that a snip. So I'm going to pull off about half of these extra ones. Now it's funny, I told you at the beginning I had bought all these different findings from artbeads.com for this necklace. I had bought bead tips and a couple of pendant options and a clasp, and what I figured out along the way is that I'm not going to be using most of these. First of all, this particular bead tip style isn't really what I want for this. This bead tip is a clamshell with a loop, and you close it up around a knot or a crimp, and it ends up looking like this, just like a little bead. But for this kind of monofilament, I prefer to use this type. I don't have any of these in sterling silver, but I'm going to use them anyways because I feel like it would be more secure. There's a little hole there, so what I'll need to do is put these 4 strands through that hole from this side, so that when I make a nice big overhand knot, just like the one I just cut off, it will nestle right inside the cup. I'll add a drop of E6000 glue, and then when I close it up, I will know that it's very secure. This one, it would probably be fine, especially with some glue, but I'm just concerned that it could slip out. So I'm going to finish restringing the other beads to the other side and then string these ends, and it's just, you just slide them through like you would bead anything. They just go from the outside of that little hinge to the inside of the cups. So I've gone ahead and finished this end, and now I need to finish this end. I've already slid all 4 monofilament strands onto this bead tip. But now it's time to space out the beads because I don't want them quite this snug. And so I'm just going to kind of slide them all down. You also don't want them too far apart, or they'll kind of end up filling in spaces because of gravity. They'll fill in the bottom of a space and not the top, if you know what I mean. And then it just won't look even. So you might want to just take a few minutes and kind of fiddle with it and get them spaced out so that they drape nicely and gracefully and they look even. Once you're satisfied with the placement of the other side, then you can just take all 4 strands and tie them together. Just make a loop. Poke the ends through the loop. Hold on to that loop and guide it to go right where you want it to go. And there's that nice big knot that's just going to sit right inside that bead tip. I'll snip off the excess. You can leave a little bit. Depends on how big your bead tip is, how much excess you'll be able to get away with. As long as it's going to be contained inside that bead tip, you're good. I just have a scrap of paper and a little bit of E6000. I'm actually going to slide that bead tip down away from the knot for a moment so that I can get in there and apply a drop of glue on the inside of each half. And then slide it up. That way I will know that that knot is going to be securely glued in there. So I've got the mechanical fastening where the knot cannot fit through that hole, and I also have a glue fastening, so this should be quite secure. And to these ends, you can add whatever kind of finishing you want. I know I had bought this very nice toggle clasp, but I realized that I like to make my necklaces adjustable. So I'm going to be adding a bit of extender chain and a lobster clasp. As I mentioned, I had purchased all of these pendants to go with it. And after trying them all out, that one's okay, don't love it. That one's pretty, don't love it with this. This little dragonfly is cute. Because it's a short necklace, it actually is more in scale than I thought it was going to be. This one I would have to take it off the bail, but I could put the tassel on there. But I think I'll save this for something else. And of these two drusies, I think I like this one. So use a jump ring and attach the pendant. And what's nice about having the bail here is that, of course, I could change out the pendant anytime I wanted and add something different. So here's the necklace all finished, and I just thought I'd leave you with a few final thoughts. First of all, one thing I should have mentioned is that when you're finishing the second side, after you have all of your strands strung through your bead tip, but you haven't knotted it yet, you should take a minute, hold your necklace like up in the air like this, let it hang down, and then tug on each of your strands of monofilament individually, pulling them up so that you make sure you don't have any that are, stuck out like that. That wouldn't be attractive. So that they're all relatively even. They're not going to be perfectly even because of the style. So do that before you do your knotting. And I ended up deciding to have my beads a little closer together than I thought. I just liked the way they looked that way. So my necklace ended up being a little shorter than I expected it to be, and that was fine. I just added some chain before the clasp here, and then some slightly larger chain on this side so that I can make it adjustable. If you're interested in supplies, don't forget to click on the eye or the tag in the upper right, or the link at the end of the video in the lower left, or in the description box. That will bring you to my blog post where I'll always have a list of supplies with links. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Take a look at my Patreon page for how you can get bonus tutorials and help support these videos. Thanks for watching. Happy creating. Bye-bye.